So, this is really wonderful. Paul Pauer. Paul Pauer immigrated from Hungary to the U.S. in 1956 at the age of 15 to escape from Soviet occupation. He attended Ojai, California High School, where he met Stephen Reese, who was lecturing on the science of primary water. After graduating, he went on to college in UC Santa Barbara to take course in geology while doing an apprenticeship with Stephen Reese, who became his mentor, teacher, well drilling partner until his death in 1985. Besides working as a hydrogeologist, Paul Pauer also became a master mason, successful builder, and real estate investor throughout California. And I just spoke with Paul for the first time just a few weeks ago, and I've been wanting to track him down for some time, so I'd like to say thank you, and also welcome, Paul, for taking the time out today to talk with us.
You're welcome, Reinette. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right.
Yes, you are. Just thank you so very much. Paul, I haven't told my listeners this, but basically I heard about primary water a couple of years ago, and I cannot remember how I came about it, but I was aware of it. And for a long time I kept thinking, I got to track this Paul Pauer down. I got to track him down. And as I had told you a few weeks ago, I thought, okay, we're gonna bring him here to Nevada City. We're going to have a presentation. We'll fly him from Hungary if we have to, so I'm wondering how much this plane ticket's going to be. And I go to look for your contact, and it's a 530 area code. I couldn't believe it. So you're in Wairika.
Well, I just right above Weed, your old stomping grounds.
That's right. So I just want to say thank you, and I'm so glad you're much closer than Hungary.
I'm privileged to be able to speak with you, because I've heard about you also, and I thought, gosh, there are some progressive people on this planet here that have their mind out of the box and can think.
That's right. So do you want to give our listeners, tell us about primary water.
First, I'd like to tell you, congratulations on your choo-choo train. They have such a thing in Jamestown in Tuolumne County. These people whose name is Hearst.
There you go.
They sell the farm supplies and stuff like that, and wonderful people. I just drilled a water well for them 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
And they have this little train that is an old, well, anyhow, I just thought I'd mention that, and it's a great success. All the kiddies come and ride it. I don't know how often.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Paul. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, we have listeners, I know. So they're dying to hear about primary water. And can you explain what is primary water?
So you're looking for a definition.
Yes.
Well, you can define it all different ways, but in a summary and in essence, primary water is the unlike existence, or I should say the combination of hydrogen, which everybody knows that the designate for hydrogen is the H, the letter H, and the hydrogen, as everybody knows, is a combustible, very highly combustible fuel that we use to launch rocket ships and can create now even motors that will hopefully give us a cleaner combustible fuel. And the other one, so the substance is known as H2O, 2 parts hydrogen, this gas that is extremely flammable and combustible. And the other one is the unlikely substance, which is oxygen, without which everybody knows what oxygen is, but also do realize that without the presence of oxygen, combustion would not be possible.
Mm-hmm.
So the enigma of water, put together, that is water, H2O, and it is, like I say, it's the most unlikely combination of gases that yet is in liquid form. And the first thing that, so I trust this will define primary water, because it is made down below, at the bowels of this planet.
The Earth's mantles, basically, the Earth mantle.
Yes, it is made of magma.
Mm-hmm.
It is derived from magma, along with everything else we have on the surface, all of our minerals. But the first mineral made, it is suspected, and it is yet a theory, but it is as good as anyone else's, but it was the first material ever separated from magma and found its way up through as the earth cooled, it found its way up all the way up through the mantle to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And then become, as we are now the water planet. Obviously, everybody has taken some basic chemistry and physics, and we all believe that we have originated with the sun and spun off in a molten state, and somehow we cooled off to become the planet, the water planet we are today. So primary water is nothing else but that. It's H2O in the purest form down below.
So basically, what I read off the Primary Water Institute website, as well as saw a very good, very simple video of Mr. Rees from 1985, is that basically it's a combination of the hydrogen and the water. It's a gaseous form, high pressure, being squeezed out of the mantle. It works its way through the fissures, through the right compositions of minerals and so on, and it's through that process that it becomes water.
Yes, but don't forget oxygen is present with it.
Oh, correct. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
It is H2O.
Right.
You know, this is what makes it so enigmatic when you think of it, because all of us are wondering about on this planet being rather explosive in every sense of the word.
Right.
Within our makeup, we contain the most explosive substance,
right,
which is derived from magma. So it's not that far-fetched.
Right. So. Interestingly enough, what Rees was also saying, and on your website, is that basically this water comes from, this unadulterated living water comes from deep, 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 deep within our earth. It comes through the fissures, interestingly enough, like granite, like what's below our feet here in Nevada City is where you can really tap in to this primary water. So you have what is called, I think, the atmospheric water. That's the rain, the river, the waters, the aquifers, it cycles around and around. And most people think that is the water source. That's all the water we have in our oceans.
But that is already the secondary cycle.
Right.
The first cycle would have had to introduce this primary water into the atmosphere. Right. You know, it's in the creation too. My God, you know, even religions accept it.
Right.
So I don't know what's the difficulty with that one is. Because presently we could have, and we should be tapping that source, which is basically boundless.
Right.
And everybody gets saying, "Well, gee, well, you know, our planet has been expanding ever since the very beginning of the time when it spun off the sun. Because you see, water had to take up space. Mm-hmm. Okay, when it was in a molten form, it was much smaller, mm-hmm, and then as the fissures or the cracks permitted the passage of water, the planet separate, or the planet itself, how should I say? Well,
the plates.
All of a sudden, Africa, Asia.
Right, the tectonic plates. Mm-hmm.
The tectonic plates separated the structures and introduced this immense volume of water.
Right.
And the same process is taking place as we speak now. Well, down in the bottom of our vast oceans, new volcanoes, new fumaroles and/or vents, mm-hmm, are all the time contributing additional water as the planet actually shrinks in magmatic form but expands volume-wise.
Right.
So,
I mean, it really, what you had credited it to was like the body producing blood. Our body's making blood every day. And the same way the planet is making water every day from the inside, and it's pushing it and squeezing it out. And even to this day, this primary water does not just come through, fissures, in springs, but it also pops up in the bottom of rivers, the bottom of oceans. And interestingly enough, as you had told me, and this is fascinating, is the crust of the planet is thicker at the valleys, and the crust of the planet is thinner at the mountaintops, which is really where you can really tap into the water, is more high up in the mountains, which is really the antithesis of what we would think is where you would tap into water, is up high in the mountains.
Anyhow, I am not some mad whatever that proposes some idiotic stuff in here. Everyone has learned. Well, first of all, just hold up a glass of water and ask yourself, how the heck did it become liquid? I mean, 2 parts hydrogen, 1 oxygen. Mm-hmm. For heaven's sakes, our most learned institutions will promote this idea, and this is not an idea, this is true. Right. Yet they are unable to surround the idea that new water is being made down below.
Right.
And that is the water we need, especially here in California in times of a drought.
Right.
For example, we, at the foot of the Sierra Nevadas, which is a great structure that runs the length of the mountain range, and then there are substructures to it. there are literally thousands and thousands of places where we could drill and obtain this water and help out. We would have a fallback position.
We'd have a fallback position, and as you had said, this is living, unadulterated water, whereas today the atmospheric water that we're all drinking is cycling around in our weather and raining on us and in our rivers and our oceans is completely toxified in chemicals and radiation and Roundup.
What we have done inadvertently to our waters is in certain places where you have basin water, like as I mentioned to you, if you visualize a bathtub-like structure being the San Joaquin Valley itself, not necessarily a flat bottom, but a bottom that contains and creates a water table in places.
Right.
This water is coming down from the atmosphere, and this water is a result of percolation downwards through some soils that we have sprayed with fertilizers, sometimes over-fertilized, sometimes pesticides, other chemical spills. They do not evaporate, they concentrate. These salts will concentrate in water, and as you draw down on these structures, in other words, use up the water that is largely atmospheric in origin, you concentrate these salts, and you are now getting foul water that will require further treatment, and further technology becomes more expensive.
Right.
And
well, it's like the desalination plants. We're talking about desalination plants. We're talking about taking our sewage and taking the water from that, extrapolating the water. And all I can think is, are you going to be removing all of the hormones and the prescription meds and chemo that people are consuming that's in that water?
Well, the problem always is introduced is that we don't even understand the substance that we know water to be. I mean, this is an element. This is a mineral, actually. It's a mineral that is unlike any other mineral. It is the world's ultimate solvent. It will dissolve everything with time. And it does have the crazy property of expanding when frozen.
Yeah.
And contracting and becoming steam and looser, more malleable when heated. Nothing else does that. No other mineral. Water is the only one. And that is just a couple of its characteristics. And we have no clue on how water reacts on a molecular level. Does it have a mind of its own? I mean, we are, after all, running around with being water to that degree, or well, in essence, water, yes.
Correct. And folks,
we are thinking beings now. Now, is some of our smarts coming from water? Well, I suggest some of our ills do. So, I don't know. This substance needs to be looked at much closer.
That's correct. So, folks, you're listening to Paul Pauer from the Primary Water Institute. My name is Reinette Senum. I'm here with Steve Baker as my engineer today, and this is Heads Up. And as I said, Paul Pauer is known as a Hungarian water magician because it's just actually not impossible, as Paul has mentioned and was mentored by Mr. Rees many, many years ago, that you can get water in the Sahara. You can get water in deserts. Basically, you just have to tap into those fissures that ultimately tap into the primary water. And so how do you identify where the water is? I mean, how can you tell the difference between where just a regular water, a well would be located, that would be tapping in, let's say, to the aquifer, not the primary water? How can you tell the difference? What does that process look like?
Well, in the true sense of the word, you look for structures that denote geologic faults. Okay? Because these faults invariably extend down deep within the earth's down to the crust, where water is made anew. I mean, in some places where you get springs, like for example in the Sahara Desert, you have the oases. It doesn't rain there, so how could this water doesn't run uphill?
Right.
Water just shows up in the middle of the desert. What pushes it? What brings it? Well, these faulted structures will permit the percolation of water upwards because something is pushing it.
Right.
Because new water is made down below. And then you look at invariably you can look at a geologic relief map. You can tell on a topographic map the differences of elevational differences. And from that you can also see the folds and basically the faults. So even before you go to a site, you can pretty well predict where you should be looking. And then you take into consideration all the other data that's available.
Right.
Plant life, prior drilling. Then you look at the mineralogy, because water is associated with certain minerals, crystalline minerals particularly.
Which we have an abundance of here in Nevada County.
Yeah, well, you have the basic material. You see, those are all basement materials. Mm-hmm. Granite is one of those.
Right.
And granite by volume can be up to 40%. Now, this is where the crazy stuff comes in. You know, if you heat granite and pressure granite and certain other types of rocks, as it were, they will release up to 40% of their volume in water.
Wow.
In other words, they will shrink that much, and the rest of it is water.
Wow, that's amazing.
Well, they did it with a diamond here recently, and my God, that made scientific news. And I'm trying to think of the name of this material. It just was all over the papers here just a couple of 4 or 5 months ago. But this is a diamond-like material that revealed to contain up to, I think, 5% of it by volume was water.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yeah. So you know, this is not voodoo science.
Right.
This is that which we should be looking at today.
Right.
And we have the resources, and there's no reason for us to dread these droughts. We should have a reserve. We should have a backup system, so we can take care of our needs in times of what we might. Well, California is notorious for that, and and then we can just keep on sipping our whiskey and not fight over water.
I had asked you when I spoke with you on the phone a few weeks ago about why isn't everyone knocking your door down, and you laughed and you said, you know why. And I said, politics? He goes, of course. I mean, it's because really what you're saying really is equivalent to, okay, the planet is not flat, it is round. And we have all been under the belief that the water comes from the sky. It comes from evaporation and this cycle, and that's basically it. We have aquifers below us that are also been now filling up with fracking chemicals and God only knows what else, and NASA is now telling us those are also going dry. But basically, this is not a true narrative. The narrative we've been told around water is completely false.
Really, the problem is, in a very honest form, is it, and I don't know how, it doesn't matter, because this is beyond politics, way beyond politics. People who like to be in control. And water is control, let's face it.
Right.
I mean, if you control the source, you control the source of food, which, by the way, goes right back to water, because if you don't have water, you don't have food.
That's right.
So if you control water, by God, you control 1/3 of the most important aspect of life.
Right.
So water is politics, and some places it is more easier to manipulate than other places.
Correct. And it makes great sense why it's being so manipulated here in California. And, again, if you don't have a lot of the resource, as we know, you can charge a lot of money for it. You can control it. And you can, which is what's happening. I mean, I have to tell you, as an individual who goes out on our streets a lot, and I'm washing down spilled beer from the night before in our, historic downtown Nevada City, or some other things that I even want to talk about. I'm being told that I can't water down our sidewalks anymore or wash it down.
You know what? I would feel sorry for him, because he's rather uneducated. I wouldn't feel guilty about using water, because we have it.
But I agree that we have it, but we're being told we don't, and we're not being told the whole entire story, because, again, I think it comes down to our leaders aren't going to find the solution.
I don't think we have any evil leaders either. A lot of people are running around and say, oh, yeah, this guy's, is doing it because he's evil and all that. I don't go for that. Mm-hmm. I think basically it requires education.
Right.
And then it has to start really at the very beginning. As soon as we let the kids know that water is H2O, I think we ought to go ahead and add the rest of the story.
Right.
And say, okay, and let them ask questions. Well, where did it come from? How did it get that?
That's right. It's a good question. Where did it come from? And so we are looking at possibly having you up here on the 23rd of July, which would be right around the corner. And you and I just had this conversation last night. I'd asked you, is there any way we can get you here? You're thinking the evening of the 23rd. So maybe what I'll do is I'll put a press release out and give details of a location yet to be identified. But and also we're having a conversation with a local organization that is interested in you possibly looking at their land. They are thinking about purchasing and and doing something with it. And their water is an issue on this land. So we'd love to be able to demonstrate to our community exactly what you are talking about.
I'd love to be able to make a difference. I have somewhere 10 more years left that could be productive. You know, it is not an endless thing.
Right.
So I felt that, you know, on the other hand, I'd like to explain that the methodology is really obtaining a map, a topographic map of an area that is under consideration, so that I have a chance to review it, and all the other information that's available about wells that have been drilled, good, bad, or indifferent.
Right. Right.
So that I can do my homework.
And are you teaching?
And the Institute is trying to teach this, you see.
That's what I wanted to know is do you have students who are learning this, so you are passing on this extraordinary knowledge?
Yeah, can you imagine that one of my best students is in East Africa. Actually, he's in Tanzania, so Kenyan. And without him, we've already drilled over 100 wells in Tanzania and several of them in Kenya.
Amazing.
And this kid, he's not a kid, for heaven's sakes. Everybody's a kid anymore. You get old enough. Anyway, he's in his early 40s and brilliant. And he could use a little formal geology, maybe a semester or two.
That's amazing.
So one of the brightest ones I have presently is in Africa. Mm-hmm. I have so many good ones in here in this country. But you see, they have to come on sites. We need a rig to drill with, and well, the rest of it will come.
Right.
Somehow it will come.
Right. Right. Well, I just have to say thank you so much for this this information, because it's been very inspiring as a person who is from this area, Nevada County. I'm very concerned about our water issues and in fire and drought, and the well-being of, you know, our community, as well as our overall economy of our state and our food and our local organic farms. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And
you know, we have so many bright kids in here that need a future and need to get out there and work, and somebody has to show them the way.
So this would be really great for.
You're a progressive lady. You're very much conscious of your needs of your community.
Right.
So you guys get out there and do it.
Well, this is actually true, Paul. This is very inspiring. So I would just like to encourage anyone out there, when we get this information out on the 23rd, if you want to, you can always track me down on Facebook, Reinette Senum. But basically, this would be a really good thing for a young person to pursue. I mean, talk about being in demand. If you have this knowledge and you can apply it and start your own business.
There's so much for our kids to do today.
Yeah.
There are so many things to do to make a change and even help alleviate this drought.
Right.
And I'd suggest one of them is not to dig some more dry holes and pray for rain.
Right.
No, we could start also by scraping some of the reservoirs that are half, two-thirds dry. Get the stuff out of there. Right. You know, to make room for the rain that will surely come if we definitely should pray all the time.
Right.
But we ought to also help ourselves. Otherwise, I think the old guy upstairs is going to get sick of,
well,
for us all.
What I've discovered for work, what really works for rain is about a week ago, I washed my car the first time in 6 months. And I kid you not, in 3 hours it rained. In 3 hours.
You are the rainmaker, you know.
I could not.
So what your people have to do is, instead of getting an Indian to do a rain dance, you just go out there and wash your car.
That's pretty much it. I could not believe. My mouth dropped. I couldn't believe it.
I like that.
So, well, I just can't thank you enough, Paul. And I really look forward to the 23rd. I'm going to nail down a date so we can get people to show up. I know a lot of people are going to be showing up. They've been very, very interested about this because, as you can tell, it affects a lot of us. I have many dear friends and people I know, and I've heard of others who their wells have dried up. They've dried up even in the middle of spring, in the middle of winter. So this is huge.
Those are all atmospheric waters. We will listen. Together we can solve this problem, but we have to hang together in here.
Right.
And this is not an unthinkable thing to do.
No, it's not at all.
Definitely within our reach.
That's right. Well, Paul Pauer from the Primary Water Institute, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I can't wait to meet you in person, and just thank you for your brilliance. And I'd like to just end with some wise words for the day. This actually comes from a recent study documenting the presence of vast quantities of water locked far beneath the Earth's surface. That study confirmed that there is a very, very large amount of water that's trapped in a really distinct layer in the deep Earth. Approaching this sort of mass of water that presents in all the world's oceans. And this comes from Scientific American. So Scientific American was actually saying this very same thing. So thank you, Paul Pauer, for being here. I'd like to thank Steve Baker for me yanking him from his desk and being my engineer. And my name is Reinette Senum, and heads up, and thank you to my listeners.
Thank you all.
Bye, Paul.
Good afternoon. Bye-bye.